This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
I'm an agronomist for green cover seed, and I have a little small cattle ranch. And what I spoke about today was how to create a drought-resilient soil. Throughout history, we have thought that when it didn't rain, our only possible recourse was to, just pray and hope for rain. We're since finding out that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of management techniques that we can use to increase the efficiency of the rainfall we do get. Rain that falls on concrete doesn't do any good. Rain that falls onto soil that absorbs it, it is effective. And so essentially what I spoke about were all these techniques. They're all outlined in my book, The Drought Resilient Farm, and we talk about methods to increase the infiltration of rainfall into the soil, how to increase the water holding capacity of the soil, reduce evaporation, and how to increase the rooting depth of our crops and the efficiency with which crops take up water. And then also talk about how to provide livestock drinking water in a drought, how to make your pastures more resistant to drought so that animals don't run out of feed. And then how do we change our cropping systems so that we're less susceptible to drought? How do we make a cropping system that when it gets dry, it doesn't matter? We're more resilient that way. The best way to improve soil is to grow more plant material and churn it through the soil. So that's where cover crops come in. We don't have enough growing season most years to grow 2 grain crops. So you grow a grain crop and a cover crop that will never reach, seed maturity. But that not reaching seed maturity thing is really kind of key. That means it's going to be in a high protein stage. Instead of mature, it'll be immature. It's high in protein because those soil organisms that fix soil and make it better, they need protein. Just like when you feeding the soil is a lot like feeding livestock. They need protein, they need energy, they need minerals. So do soil microbes. And cattle, when you feed a cow, you're actually feeding the microbes in the rumen. You don't feed the cow itself. You feed the microbes feed the cow. Same thing in the soil. If you get around the idea that you're fertilizing plants or you're nourishing plants and realize that everything that you put on the soil goes through a microbe before it gets to the plant, you will overcome a lot of mental barriers to soil improvement when you make that realization. Feed those microbes in the soil just like you feed the microbes in a rumen, and it's the same process. So, the idea behind the livestock, number one, they cash flow the cover crops. They pay for the cover crops. So any soil improvement you get is just a great byproduct of feeding your livestock. The other thing that happens is in order for microbes to do their work, it needs to be warm, it needs to be moist, it needs to be protected from ultraviolet light, and it has to be, the high protein and low protein material needs to be mixed together. Well, wouldn't it be great if we had a machine that could take low protein crop residue and high protein cover crops, mash them together, moisten them, protect them from ultraviolet light, and keep them dark, and keep them warm, and have a big fermentation chamber and then deposit it out on the ground? Well, we do have a machine. It's called a cow that does all those things. You get more active microbial growth in a cow in 48 hours than you get on the soil surface in a year. There's really 2 things you do to reduce evaporation. One is to reduce the wind speed at the soil surface. So anything that slows the velocity of wind. Windbreaks of trees. We used to have windbreaks around every field. Now people are bulldozing them out at major expense to gain little small tiny pieces of land. And then their entire field has a higher evaporation rate. So in a dry year, your yield goes down. Research has proven wind breaks increase your whole farm yields. Leaving your crop residue taller reduces wind speed. There's quite a bit of evidence that harvesting wheat with a stripper header versus a platform header that cuts it really increases the amount of soil moisture that stays in your soil from year to year. And then just having a mulch. There's been research done at Garden City, Kansas, K-State, where they had complete soil coverage from just one cover crop. They left the residue in place versus remove the residue. There was a difference of 5 inches of soil moisture throughout a year. That's big. That's an extra 50 bushels, roughly, of dry land corn.